Should we start, Forrest?
Yeah, let's start.
Okay. Yay. So what we thought we would do today would be to have a very short conversation, and then any questions you would have for Forrest, we would love to hear them. And then Forrest is willing to go through the exhibition and talk about the pieces. So I think that would really be the best. So now, let's see. I think that I want to thank Emily also for putting together with Forrest an historical exhibition, because often people don't know the roots of all of this. And I know as I looked through the pieces, there were a couple of pieces and I thought, well, that's a very simple piece. Why is that in the exhibition? Well, because it has a sang de boeuf glaze, and at the time that was very difficult to achieve. So there are reasons that every piece is here. And it represents not only the very well-known people, but also people who are not as well-known, who are important. And Forrest, you'll talk about that, I know. Okay. So, Forrest, I have a couple questions for you. Number one, tell us about your collecting, how it started, what your focus is, and why California is so important to it.
Okay, it started when I was in high school. I belonged to an art club, and we went to the Pasadena Museum, the old Chinese building on Los Robles, and it was a clay and glass show. It was in November into December, and I thought, you know, these things are really great. I'd had a design class in high school, and that teacher taught the ceramic class. We had a very rich program where I went to school, high school, and you walked in, there were some velvet curtains, and in hanging precariously in front of these was a Glenn Lucan's salad set of pressed glass, a big bowl and 4 smaller ones. So I thought, even at that time, I thought, what would Carol Savion do in this situation? And so I went to the counter and got the checklist to see what might be for sale. I just wanted more information. So I bought the salad set, but I didn't drive yet, so I had to get my dad to come over with me when I went to pay for it. And that's how it began. And one of the reasons this little part of my story is important to me is because we have had a number of exhibits, some big, some small, in different types of venues. And it's my hope that if 1 or 2 young people can see these vessel forms that are very simple and elegant, maybe they will get the idea that they can do something like them themselves and maybe bypass the kind of teaching that's done in many schools now that are where they're making art and sculpture. I like to come back to this basic form, and that has all sorts of educational possibilities. It's the young audience. I see, well, anyway, that's really the inspiration for a lot of my motivation.
Okay. Give us an idea of the scope of your collection. We have here 50 pieces, I think, in total. Mm-hmm. And that's a small portion of what you've collected over the years.
Well, in terms of material, there's ceramics, first and foremost. Then when I moved to Berkeley, I met Bob Stocksdale, a wood turner. You could drive by and see through a basement window that he was working. That morphed into glass, metal, paper, fiber, not much jewelry. I don't do that. And always coming back to this inherent vessel form. It really speaks to me. It doesn't have a lid, by and large. It doesn't have a handle. It doesn't have a spout. It has maybe a neck, a body, a foot. It really resonates.
And so we have the Forrest segment of the Visionaries episode playing in the corner, and there is one shot. The director of photography was not happy with it, but the audience loves it because it's just breathtaking to see these literally dozens of boxes and wonder what is in all those boxes. So you have a very extensive collection. You like to collect in a deep way.
Yes, I would rather have another Laura Andreasen bowl than one by someone maybe who studied with her or someone who hasn't found their own voice. I like to be able to tell an artist's work from early, like the Harrison McIntosh piece in the other room, small little marvelous bowl, to more current work. It helps tell the artist's story. We are not into showing pretty things. We're into form, texture, form, color, form. I hope you get the idea. That's really primary to what my focus has been.
Now, are we allowed to talk about costs?
Costs? Can you explain a little bit what you want to know?
Well, I mean, when you've collected artists who were not well known when you started collecting them. For instance, perhaps you could tell us about the 3 pieces in the middle window, because you told me the price of those pieces when you purchased them.
No, I would rather tell you about the price of something like this. Okay. This is Coelhoven. I was, for a very short time, in the early 70s, living in San Francisco, and I went to an Upper Grant Street fair, and it was like a Sunday morning, and this artist had a card table, and on it she had 8 or 10 pieces. And I looked at a small piece, it was a little picture, and it had big elephant ears on each side. Oh, that's very nice. So I thought, well, I don't know anything about her. But she did say she lived in Berkeley, so I thought that's. So I went on up the street, looking, and kept coming. I came back, I looked again. Then I went down the other way. I kept thinking about the little elephant picture. And it was $15 in 1973 or 4. Well, I finally bought it for $15. I did not ask for a collector's discount. And here is a piece of her work from about 8 to 10 years later. And it was a little bit more pricey, but that gives you the idea, I hope, of sticking with an artist and watching their development over the years.
And then you also talked about gifts from artists. Sometimes artists will give you something.
Well, it has happened. I was visiting Ron Kent in Hawaii. Ron Kent put, what kind of wood is it?
Koa, I'm guessing. Oh, no, it is not.
It's Norfolk pine.
Pine,
from
yes.
the islands about 1,000 miles east of New Zealand. And I've only been to his home once. I'd never met him before. And I was selecting a few things to purchase. And I found a beautiful, typical piece that exemplified his technique, his finish, the wood. It had no decay on it at all, although that can be very nice.
Yeah.
Then we went out through the back door, and here was a washing machine and a dryer, and there was a shelf above it, and on it there was a wooden bowl. And he said, "Oh, that's the first bowl I ever turned. It's from a piece of driftwood at the beach." So we went on and looked around at other things. And to make a long story short, I gathered the things together that I wanted to purchase. And then I said, I know the bowl over the washing machine is very important to you because it's the first bowl you made. But if you ever should want to sell that bowl, I would love to buy it because this would give me some spread of time. "Oh," he said, "I could never sell that bowl. But," he said, "I could give it to you." Oh, I was very excited. I said, thank you very much." And what is the lesson to this? What is the lesson? The lesson is you always say thank you before they change their mind in offering you a gift. There.
Works on view. Innovative craft artists, mid-20th century. Is that why you selected them? Why did you select these particular?
Emily helped. She wanted things that were made primarily in Southern California that had not been shown by me in this area. And so many of the things are chosen with that in mind. And I really will look forward to chatting with you, not as a herd, but sort of individually, if you have some particular interests about something. There's something I want to say along about that line.
Yes.
I've already said that we're not talking about pretty things. We're trying to show the life that has been created by the people who have made these things. That is what's important to me. These are very nice things, but the real treasures are the people who've made them. I had a mentor who collected Chinese and Japanese porcelains and ceramics. And I thought, these are really wonderful examples. I never bought more than 2 or 3 things of that type because I had no feeling for the people who made them. And almost everything here has been made by someone that I've been able to meet. And that is the real treasure, the connection. So I have a request that I want to make to you, because there's a lot of history here today, sitting in these red chairs. And I want you to do me a favor. I want you to share an idea or a feeling you have about something that is on exhibit here with someone else that's here, and hopefully someone you have not yet met, and try to create a new friendship, connection. It's all about the people. And I really feel that if you could do that for me, I would feel very blessed.
Thank you, Forrest.
Thank you.
Now, shall we open the conversation for
Oh, I
questions?
want to know who has a question.
First question.
Okay, you had an intriguing story that you had about buying this piece for $15 that you thought about.
Yeah.
Where did you get the background to say that was a significant piece versus all the other stuff that was probably in that same fair that was $15 and fundamentally, not that great?
I don't know. I have been doing this for so long. It's, for example, when you go to a party and you see someone and you are attracted. It's a matter of the chemistry.
So it's not your education? For example,
I have never taken an art class other than in high school.
Okay.
To answer your question, maybe a little more fully and bring the two questions together, when you're looking at things, you have to know when to say yes, and you have to know when to say no. It's the same with people, and it's the same with things. And I have made many mistakes to buy things that I could figure out that I shouldn't have bought even before I get out of the car going at home. That's okay. I can live with those mistakes. But there is a difference between yes and no. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Any other questions?
Good. Yes,
So did you know all those people, right?
most of them. I would say 80% of the people.
You know Laura Andreessen very well?
Oh, I was a guest in their home many times.
So then, do you know if the yellow bowl is uranium yellow? Is it?
Yes, a uranium glazed bowl. And Laura told me, Laura lived a very long life. The latter years were in rather poor health. And she told me why we used to bathe in that uranium glaze. There was no concern about how it might be affecting our health. Maybe it had some effect on her health. I don't
It had it
know.
on me too, because I was in graduate school with her in the 60s, and we did research in uranium. And she would say, well, this stuff's okay. You don't have to worry about it. So it's just really interesting, because I haven't seen one in a long time.
There's a little heat coming off of it.
Yeah, it still is probably, yeah. Yeah, no, it's,
Okay, any other questions?
Are you still collecting?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Just on this trip. And I thought it's not something made by someone in California. It's it's made by someone who lived in Arizona. And I have had this name placed on me of collecting California artists. And I thought, how will I convince Carol that this should be in a show? Because it's made in Arizona rather than California. It's like the Toshiko Takaezu pieces that were made back east primarily, and which I love very, very much. I was in the Army and overseas, and I then took my discharge there and spent a year in Sweden going to school. And never during that time did I not know that I would not be coming back to California. That Pacific coast and the orientation, the coast is generally north to south, except in Santa Barbara. And that has always been sort of an anchor for me. I feel very, very connected to the land here. Kurt.
Forrest, I know that you often will move work in and around your house, from the storage to the house, and old pieces with some of the new pieces. Is that something conscious, or you just kind of say, well, let's go open up a couple boxes, or let me pull something specific, or how do you kind of cluster your pieces in and around your house or around you?
Oh, I like for the things to be assembled so they can visit with each other. Like we changed the cabinets here this afternoon a little bit so that Barbara Willis could be over here with this glass so the color ties together better. Carol mentioned the boxes in storage. One of the reasons that an event like this that Carol has afforded us is to get these things out of my house and out of storage where they can have a public life, where people can see, enjoy, and learn from them. Unfortunately, there's nothing here that you can hold in your hands, but maybe you can get some feeling in your body for some of these things. They're really some fine examples. Yes?
Do you have one specific piece that you think is just the best of all the collection?
Here or anywhere?
Here and anywhere.
Okay. There's one ceramic bowl here that means a very great deal to me. My comment is not to take away the beauty of any other piece, but this central vitrine here has a Natzler bowl, gray Natzler bowl in it. I would like each of you to look at it. It is one of 3 bowls that came out of the first firing where Otto developed his technique of melt fissure lines. And it's an excellent example. It's very modest. It doesn't flash, but I think it's very important, and I'm pleased that it's here in this show. I think that's about our questions. But do feel free to put me on the spot with more questions as you wander around.
Oh,
I just wanted to say
Yeah.
one thing, if I could just, one of the great things that your collection and being in the Visionaries episode is we base the education guide for the episode on collecting and on being a collector and hopefully encouraging a new generation of collectors. And with our public programming here, like we have public high school students that are going to really get to learn that and see that and feel that. Thank you for like bringing the collection to them too. We're not here today, but we'll have a few public school classes that will be affected.
Well, I want to say something about education, if I can. Since we're mostly all in California, we've heard about Proposition 13. I think that Proposition 13 needs some very serious changes. It has robbed 1 or 2 generations of schools of the income they have needed to provide a first-class education. Where California used to be number 1 or 2, it's now down in the 30s or the 40s. Our tax program benefits old people like me who can stay in their house. There needs to be some adjustment made so that people can have the opportunity, especially now that we are understanding that very early childhood education is very beneficial. It's a good way to spend public money. The other aspect of education that I want to mention, just in closing, is I really like my impression of what the French mean by the word citizen. It's sort of like the Russians in comrade. Citizen, think about it. Think about all that has happened here in California for our benefit here today. It's a real gift that we have, and I think one of the important functions of education is to develop citizens who are informed, educated, full of ideas, and ready and comfortable to talk with people who they do not necessarily agree with. This is very important. This is, in my opinion, a very important aspect of education. Thank you.